let's dig in to some specifics. You know what happens on this show? Stuff and Meereen.
Stuff and Meereen.
Eric and I very thoughtlessly, we were just somehow managed to not talk about Meereen.
It was a very important part of our plan to forget to
talk about Meereen
when we talked about the finale last week. Yeah.
But let's just sort of dig into that, and let's include in that Tyrion heading there and kind of and Varys and that, all of that, how that tied together. I have a Twitter question that you guys can answer if you'd like. Abdullah asks, what do you think of Tyrion being left as the leader of Meereen, which is, I thought, fantastic. I loved that. Did you?
Him as the leader is great because it's always interesting. You know, he's such a great character, right? Amazing character, and we've seen him at so many levels of power and no power. And when he was the Hand of the King, that was great, even though he was Hand of the King to Joffrey, and so it was a very, very dangerous situation for him. Yet he still got to exert a lot of control. So it is exciting to see that. I do think Varys kind of popping back up at the end was a little bit of a convenience, you know, given he'd been off camera all season. He just said, "Don't worry, I made it here." You know? But those two are great together. I did think it was a little sad that dynamic wasn't explored further, and so I am excited to see the two of them back together, maybe more in control than they've ever been, given that instead of answering to Joffrey, he's not answering to anyone since she literally flew away, you know, the person that he would be speaking for.
Yeah, seemingly he is in the largest position of power, and he has the most experience sort of running things. What do you think?
My question is, what benefit does Tyrion have to run Meereen?
Well, what choice does he have?
I don't know. I feel like, isn't his goal to get Daenerys with her dragons and go back?
That's what I wonder.
I
do wonder maybe he'll help mobilize in a way she hasn't been. You know,
Right.
And maybe he will actually be smarter with how he's treating the situation, since she's made some notable mistakes, and missteps. So maybe he'll kind of figure out how to get everyone more.
You think he'll actually talk to the harpies and reason with them, because they've just been sort of a faceless, literally with the masks and everything, enemy of Daenerys who there's no one to talk to or negotiate with. You think he'll get to the bottom of that?
Well, I think that even if that is his plan, she's gone. She's not there to do that, right? And the one dragon that can be controlled took her away. And so obviously one party is going off to find her, and I think they very rightly said, why would we bring you when actually the skills that you have are far more applicable here? He would have been a burden on this journey to go find her, but a lot of help running things because he is a very adept political thinker. I think that Tyrion, partially just because of who he is the least likely to go straight to violence. So yeah, he probably would find a way to work around the Sons of the Harpy, right?
Yeah, but to answer your question, I think it will be necessary, and hopefully they will give them more form next season, and like the High Sparrow, who obviously Jonathan Pryce was so great in that role, get someone like that to give them literally a face and a voice and understand more their perspective. And it's always fun to see Tyrion kind of toe to toe and facing off with his wits with someone. So maybe that can be this unknown leader of the Harpies next season.
I also love his dynamic with Varys, and I think that if we get a little more time with that could be we always sort of talk about these great pairings, and that is definitely up there.
Yeah.
If explored a little bit more. But what did you guys think of Daenerys' arc this season?
I thought it was pretty solid, pretty cool. She just winds up in such an interesting place, right?
Right.
We'd like to talk about the books.
I feel
no book spoilers.
I feel at this point, I don't know. I err almost on saying
I'm new to this.
I say
no, I don't think that we will talk about the books now, but towards the end, maybe we'll bring up some things from the books.
I'll say, I won't say what, but they changed something slightly with the Dothraki.
Yeah.
So she's in an interesting spot, but I just don't know if I guess my big question with her is, after everything she's learned, everything she's become, do the Dothraki look at her differently? Because they kicked her to the curb pretty much, you know, once Khal Drogo died, and only a small number of them stayed behind with her. Yeah. So now that they've found her again, she is a queen, she has fully grown dragons, will they now respect her and follow her? And will they become her army, the army that she needs to take Westeros? Yeah. Or will she be, in for a rude awakening?
I think that's an excellent question, and we can start to speculate on that. I think that, her leaving the ring was her sort of leaving a breadcrumb trail. That's kind of my interpretation of that.
Right.
Like, hey, I was here.
Although
now I'm here.
she's
just naked by the end.
She'll be very, very lucky if they find that ring. But
yes.
that could be. Although I also wonder. I was trying to figure it also maybe if it is because it is Dothraki people. Like, does she not want them to know anything about her current status?
Yeah, and that was the other question that I thought, like, or theory was that maybe she just doesn't want them to know what's going on with her at this point in time, and she wants to be able to connect with them as, their former Khaleesi. I have to say, let's talk about the dragon for just a little minute. People complain some about the visual effects. I love seeing the dragon, and even like in that finale episode, my brother was like, I had more compassion for that dragon than anybody. I don't know that I feel quite that way, but I had a lot of compassion for that dragon.
What were the complaints about the dragon? I thought it looked awesome.
I did too.
I mean, there were people.
There
were people saying in the arena scene that there was some wonky CGI. I guess there are some shots that didn't look perfect. It's a TV show, guys. Like they do not have the Jurassic World budget. They just don't. There's a reason they have to even choose when to show the dragons. I thought it was totally fine. Like, I didn't think there was anything laughable about it. Yeah, there were a couple shots that looked a little more effecty than others.
But I think especially like in that finale when it was just the two of them.
Yeah.
I thought he looked great. Right?
Yeah, I thought he looked great the whole time. I don't know what people were complaining about. In his little nest where he's like drunk with skeletons and stuff.
Right. Just drunk on murder.
I do want to say with her, I think, sometimes people got frustrated with her, but I think it was not unintended that, the idea of her not making all the right calls, not always knowing what the right thing to do is, and certainly a parallel to things we've seen before in the show, which is when doing the noble thing without thinking about any other consequences might not be the right call, and so that a lot of that was with her. She's trying to make these hard calls and try to kind of be Ned Starky in her, like, no, well, this is how it should be, and this person committed a crime, thus they shall be executed, even though she's not thinking through, like, well, that's going to turn everyone on you.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of this season was about her learning those harsh lessons.
Yeah.
I think another question Rob asks, I have a social question.
Rob
asks.
Freaking Rob.
He asks, how many seasons do you think before Daenerys gets to Westeros, the end of this season 6? And here's sort of bringing up your point. I agree with you that her time to date has been about learning lessons about what it takes to be a leader, right? It almost feels so obvious. And I remember even David Benioff, I think, in one of like the after the shows, talked about when Tyrion saw her go off in the dragon, that he has to drop his cynicism at that point, and he has to, like, you can't argue with this. He's never seen anything like this. Now, at this point, you've got to think this is the one. Like, Varys is telling me, and I've seen this, and she's amazing. We just got to get her. This is the leader, which makes me think she's absolutely not. Like, that this is now, the more that she is built up to be the one that we would count on to actually kind of win this thing, that to me, I'm like, then she absolutely will not, because that is the way Martin is writing these books, which is defy every expectation, right?
It's sort of a rule in storytelling. Like, it happens a lot in heist films. So here's how the heist is going to go. And they show you how everything is supposed to happen. So when they actually go to do it, it's not going to happen that way. Exactly.
Right.
So I feel like, everyone's like, who's going to wind up on the Iron Throne? I don't think that's like, it's not as clear, like cut and dry, like black and white.
I don't think it's that. I mean, that's a much bigger question. That it's funny because somebody asked us about that, like Pineapple Martin tweeted and asked us to speculate on that. Maybe we will at some point in a whole separate thing.
But going back to what you were saying, and of her being a leader, I wouldn't want her to be my leader. Did you see how she dealt with those guys, with her dragons, like the leaders of Meereen? She like brought them into that room and had the dragons just eat one of them in front of her and like set them on fire. I wouldn't want that person in charge. And she's not very good, like you were saying. She's not very good at making tough decisions and of being like diplomatic about things. She seems she has a little of that dragon madness in her.
Dragon madness. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't. It's funny because I think that was the first time that they really indicated that she might have a little bit of that madness. A little bit of dragon crazy. Like,
might. You see what she did to that guy?
Well, this is a brutal world, and you do have to execute people. You got a dragon. Why not make that be known? It is known.
It is known. It's known, Khaleesi.
I'm not saying that, but then again, is there any one person out there that we think is, oh, well, that's a great leader? I mean, they're all human, and they're
Oh yeah,
none of them.
everyone's imperfect on the
Yeah.
show. I will say though that as much as this show,
The
you
only
know,
one that would have been great is dead. He's got no head.
right. I mean, even him though, you know.
Yeah.
But on a show that still, you know, obviously like, you know, flies in the face of most conventions and always tries to keep twists and turns coming. I still think, dramatically speaking, she has to reach Westeros.
Yeah.
I don't think she's ultimately necessarily going to be the leader, the one. But I do feel like her getting to Westeros, even if it's to die on the shores of Westeros, they probably have to pay that off. And I think to answer that question about when will it happen, I think that's going to be a lot determined on when we hear they announce the end of the show.
Yeah.
And I think in the next year, we're going to get that announcement of, is it 7 or 8 seasons, which seems to really be the question at this
Right.
point.
I feel like it would
So
take
be-
a long time to get over there, right? How long is that boat ride?
Okay, well, having said that, I mean, we've got to probably move on from this one particular question. I think you're right; it'd probably be in the final season, but that dragon can get places fast, dude.
But she has to bring the army with her,
Yeah,
right?
she's gotta
She
bring
can't just
the
go by
army with
herself.
her.
She can just show up on the one dragon and be like, "Ah,
She can't.
set the Night King on fire.
She
Set
can't
the Lannisters on fire."
Hang on. She can't just show up on the one dragon, but she could show up with 3 and be pretty okay, to be honest.
I think that maybe they just tease going into the final season that like the army is on the way, and then it's
And
like,
then it's like eventually
and
they're
then
there.
Okay.
8 months later,
And
you
that's
know?
like a cliffhanger. Like
Yeah,
the dragons arrive on the shore or something.
Right.
We have to move on to other topics, but very quickly, Jorah. We won't say how, but he is a slightly different role coming back. Were you happy to see him again?
Oh yeah, I
how
love
do you-
Jorah, and I thought that was great. I mean, I think first of all, him and Tyrion, another great duo.
Yeah.
It was exciting just because he was that huge connective tissue to Dany.
Yeah.
And we were waiting for Dany and Tyrion to meet. And yeah, I liked that. You know, he was so determined to get back to her, and now that he's like dying, it is actually kind of interesting. Like even when he put himself into the fighting pits, it was like just one way or another he was going to get back to her. And now that he's on borrowed time, it was like he
Yeah.
just wanted to prove himself to her over and over again.
Although he has no problem touching people, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
With his infected grayscale arm.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
you say he's dying, but really that you can
10
go a
years.
long way
Yeah.
with that. So it's not like
and
he's
maybe you
been
can be the
poisoned.
random Shireen type who will survive only to have your father burn you. You know.
Yeah.
But-
if he's lucky.
right. Although his father's dead, so it can't be his father.
Right.
Is it?